The story of the Aryan Brotherhood begins within the walls of San Quentin State Prison, one of California's most notorious penitentiaries. Established in 1964, the Aryan Brotherhood was not just a product of racism and gang culture, but a response to an environment where survival often depended on allegiance, brutality, and the ability to control others through fear. Over time, the AB transformed San Quentin from a place of incarceration into a battleground for racial warfare, gang power struggles, and underground criminal enterprise. San Quentin, located in Marin County, California, has long been one of the most violent and overcrowded prisons in the United States. In the early 1960s, racial tensions were rising, both in society and behind prison walls. Black inmate groups like the Black Guerrilla Family were organizing based on revolutionary ideology, while Hispanic groups like La Nuestra Familia and the Mexican Mafia were asserting control over their respective populations. In this racially polarized environment, white inmates began to feel vulnerable. A group of white prisoners banded together, originally calling themselves the Diamond Tooth Gang, before reorganizing under the name Aryan Brotherhood in 1964. Unlike some of the black and Hispanic gangs that had political roots, the AB was built on white supremacy, violence, and criminal opportunism. San Quentin's violent and racially segregated culture provided the perfect incubator for the AB's ideology and operations. The group initially claimed to be about protecting white inmates, but it quickly grew into something far more dangerous. From its inception, the AB used extreme violence as a means to establish dominance. San Quentin, with its narrow tiers, isolated yards, and limited supervision, became the stage for dozens of stabbings, beatings, and assassinations, many orchestrated or carried out by the Brotherhood. To become a made member of the AB, one usually had to murder another inmate, often a member of a rival race or gang. This blood-in, blood-out system ensured that only the most committed and violent individuals were accepted, and that no one could leave the gang without facing death. Some of the AB's earliest murders took place in San Quentin, including racially motivated killings and the elimination of suspected informants. These acts not only spread fear, but solidified the AB's status as a power structure within the prison. One of their most notorious methods of killing was the use of homemade shanks, knives fashioned from metal scraps, melted plastic, or sharpened objects. These weapons were often concealed in ingenious ways and used in lightning-fast ambush attacks in the yard, shower rooms, or even court transport areas. As the AB's reputation grew, its influence expanded, not just among white inmates, but across the entire prison population. Inmates of other races knew to stay clear of the Brotherhood unless they wanted to face fatal consequences. Fear became their strongest weapon. Even prison guards were wary of AB members, many of whom were highly intelligent, organized, and capable of manipulating both inmates and staff. The AB also imposed a rigid racial segregation system that deeply affected daily life at San Quentin. Showers, workout areas, even seating in the mess hall were often dictated by racial and gang affiliation, and the Brotherhood enforced these boundaries with lethal force. Any white inmate who associated with blacks or other races risked punishment, or worse, from the AB. This led to an unofficial but enforced racial apartheid system within the prison. The Brotherhood's ideology of white supremacy wasn't just tattooed on skin, it was embedded in the social order of the prison. While violence was the AB's calling card, its long-term power at San Quentin came from its involvement in organized crime. Over time, the Brotherhood developed a sophisticated network for drug trafficking, extortion, gambling, and protection rackets within the prison. Methamphetamine and heroin were their drugs of choice, both of which were smuggled in through corrupt guards, visitors, and other inmates. The AB would control distribution among white inmates and often partner temporarily with rival gangs like La M.A., Mexican Mafia, to maximize profits, an example of the AB's pragmatic approach to power. Inmate-run stores inside the prison often paid protection fees to the AB, and if they didn't, they'd face robbery, beatings, or murder. The Brotherhood also ran loan sharking operations, charging high interest rates in prison currency, often stamps, food, or drugs, enforced through violence. San Quentin became a criminal hub, and the AB functioned like a mafia family, with its own rules, hierarchy, and enforcement squads. The Aryan Brotherhood's reach extended beyond the inmate population. Over time, they learned how to exploit the system, using grievances, lawsuits, and legal knowledge to manipulate prison administration. AB members were often known to be highly intelligent, capable of writing their own legal briefs, filing civil rights lawsuits, and playing the court system to gain privileges or retaliate against perceived enemies. Some gained notoriety as jailhouse lawyers, weaponizing the law as another tool in their arsenal. Their presence led to increased lockdowns, more security restrictions, and a general hardening of prison policy. In effect, the AB's power forced the California Department of Corrections to transform how they handled gang members, resulting in the development of special housing units and long-term solitary confinement policies. Notable members and events at San Quentin. Several of the AB's most notorious figures operated out of San Quentin. Barry Mills and Tyler Bingham, later national leaders of the AB, cut their teeth in San Quentin before moving into federal custody. John Superman Gresner became a legend for his violent enforcement of AB rules. Michael Irish Mike Thompson, once a high-ranking AB member at San Quentin, would later defect and become a government informant, offering detailed insights into the Brotherhood's activities at the prison. The 1970s and 1980s were especially violent decades, with dozens of murders attributed to AB actions, both racially motivated and internal, purges of suspected snitches or rivals. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, law enforcement began launching massive RICO cases, Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, against the Aryan Brotherhood. These cases aim to treat the AB not just as a gang, but as an organized crime syndicate, allowing prosecutors to charge leaders with murders committed by subordinates. San Quentin was a key focal point in these investigations. With the help of flipped members like Thompson and increasing surveillance technology, the state was able to isolate many of the AB's leaders in supermax prisons and solitary confinement, reducing their ability to organize violence from inside. However, while diminished, the AB's legacy at San Quentin continues to echo. The Aryan Brotherhood's impact on San Quentin Prison is profound and lasting. What began as a loosely organized group of white inmates seeking protection in the 1960s evolved into a violent, racially charged empire that transformed one of America's oldest prisons into a central theater of gang warfare and organized crime. Their reign at San Quentin cemented the AB as a name synonymous with prison terror, racial violence, and underground power. Even today, their legacy influences gang politics, security protocols, and racial dynamics, not just at San Quentin, but throughout the entire California prison system. Now let's take a deeper look at two of the most dangerous Aryan Brotherhood members in San Quentin history. Number 2, Michael Irish Mike. Thompson, from enforcer to informant. Michael Irish Mike. Thompson is one of the most infamous figures to emerge from the dark, violent corridors of California's prison system. Once a high-ranking member of the Aryan Brotherhood, AB, one of the deadliest prison gangs in the United States, Thompson's eventual turn as a government witness shook the foundations of the gang and exposed some of its most closely guarded operations. Michael Thompson was born in California and raised in an environment where violence and racial tension were part of the social landscape. A large, physically imposing man, Thompson developed a reputation early on for his fighting ability and explosive temper. He was arrested in the late 1960s and eventually incarcerated for a double murder committed during a robbery. That conviction sent him to California's San Quentin State Prison, a facility infamous for its brutal and racially segregated prison population. Upon entering San Quentin, Thompson quickly aligned himself with the Aryan Brotherhood. Although the AB originally formed as a quasi-protection group for white inmates, by the time Thompson arrived, it had evolved into a highly structured criminal organization with strict codes and rituals, including blood oaths and a kill or be killed mentality. Thompson, with his natural leadership abilities, size, and willingness to carry out extreme violence, quickly climbed the ranks. He became one of the gang's enforcers, a torpedo responsible for eliminating enemies and enforcing internal discipline. His job wasn't just to fight rival gang members, but to execute hits, often ordered from the highest levels of AB leadership. During this time, he was involved in numerous acts of violence, including stabbings, assaults, and orchestrating murders inside prison walls. The Aryan Brotherhood operated on a strict racial hierarchy, and Thompson fully bought into its ideologies of white supremacy and loyalty to the gang above all else. Despite his commitment, Thompson eventually became disillusioned with the gang. According to his later testimonies and interviews, this shift happened gradually. He began to question the organization's increasing focus on drug trafficking and its deviation from its original goals. But the tipping point came when he was ordered to kill a close friend, another AB member, as part of an internal purge. This was not uncommon. The Aryan Brotherhood, like many violent gangs, maintained power through fear and ruthlessness, even toward its own. Loyalty was not just expected, but demanded to the point of self-destruction. Thompson's refusal to carry out the hit marked the beginning of his rift with the Brotherhood. Worse, his refusal painted a target on his back. He knew too much, and the AB didn't tolerate dissent or weakness. The man once considered a golden boy of the gang was now seen as a threat. In the late 1980s, Thompson made a fateful decision. He agreed to cooperate with law enforcement. His decision to turn state's evidence against the Aryan Brotherhood was unprecedented. Rarely had someone so high in the organization's hierarchy flipped. His cooperation marked a turning point in the decades-long war between prison gangs and the state. Thompson provided detailed accounts of internal operations, including how hits were planned and carried out, the identities of dozens of members and associates, the gang's organizational structure, and initiation rites, connections between prison-based activities and street-level crime. He also provided chilling details about specific homicides, extortion schemes, dope deals, and even alliances with other gangs, including the Mexican Mafia and the Black Guerrilla Family, despite their racial ideologies, when it served their interests. His testimony led to the convictions of numerous AB members, including some who had operated untouchably for decades. For his cooperation, Thompson was placed in protective custody. He has spent most of his post-AB life in solitary confinement or highly secure locations to shield him from retribution. The Aryan Brotherhood, which has a long memory and a zero-tolerance policy for informants, has issued multiple contracts on his life. Even under heavy guard, the threat against him remains constant. He has survived several assassination attempts and lives under the constant shadow of death. Despite that, Thompson has become outspoken about the realities of prison life and the dangers of gang involvement. He has given interviews, participated in documentaries, and has spoken about his regrets, particularly his early acceptance of racist ideology and blind loyalty to a violent code. Michael Thompson is a complex figure. To many in law enforcement, he is a hero who risked his life to take down one of the most feared prison gangs in American history. His insider knowledge and detailed cooperation provided an unprecedented look into the AB and helped spark long-term investigations that continue to this day. To others, especially within the criminal world, he's a traitor and rat. His name is reviled among prison gangs, and his defection is considered one of the greatest betrayals in AB history. Critics have also questioned some of his claims, suggesting that he might have exaggerated his role or embellished events to protect himself or gain leverage. That said, much of what he said has been independently verified and corroborated by other witnesses and law enforcement. Michael "Irish Mike" Thompson's story is not just one of crime and violence, but of transformation and redemption, however controversial. He was once the embodiment of Aryan Brotherhood values: loyalty, violence, supremacy. But he ultimately chose to break from that path, even at the cost of his own life and safety. His journey exposes not only the dark underbelly of America's prison system, but also the powerful human forces of identity, fear, loyalty, and regret. Whether seen as a villain, a survivor, or a cautionary tale, Thompson remains a pivotal figure in the history of prison gangs in the United States. Number 1. John Superman Gresner, the enforcer of the Aryan Brotherhood. The world of prison gangs is brutal, secretive, and often deadly. Within that world, John Superman Gresner carved out a reputation as one of the most violent and loyal soldiers in the ranks of the Aryan Brotherhood. His story is one of bloodshed, power, and fanatic loyalty, a tale that reflects the inner workings of one of America's most dangerous prison gangs. Born in the 1940s, John Gresner had a troubled upbringing, shaped by violence and early exposure to crime. Like many future gang members, his path to prison was almost inevitable, filled with street crime, drugs, and a lack of stable structure or opportunity. By the time he entered California's state prison system in the late 1960s or early 1970s, Gresner was already hardened. He earned the nickname Superman, not only because of his muscular build and physical presence, but because of his fearlessness, and some say recklessness, in engaging in prison combat. Unlike some members who gravitated to leadership or strategy, Gresner was known first and foremost as a killer. A true torpedo in AB terms, someone who carried out work, a euphemism for murder. Gresner's entry into the Aryan Brotherhood came during the gang's early formative years. The AB was officially founded in San Quentin State Prison in 1964 as a white prison gang formed partly in response to racial tension and the rise of black prison gangs like the Black Guerrilla Family, BGF. From the beginning, the AB was about more than race. It was about power, fear, and control. Gresner, with his hatred of authority, natural aggression, and fanatical loyalty to fellow white inmates, was the ideal candidate. After proving himself in fights and missions, violent assaults or murders ordered by the gang, he was eventually made, a formal induction into the Brotherhood, which reportedly includes blood oaths and committing a sanctioned killing. Once a full member, Gresner became one of the gang's most trusted enforcers, known for his ruthlessness and willingness to carry out hits without hesitation. John Gresner was allegedly involved in dozens of murders during his time in prison, often using handmade knives, shanks, fashioned from sharpened metal or plastic. One of the most notable aspects of his persona was his total lack of fear when it came to violence, whether in the yard, in his cell block, or during lockdowns. Gresner wasn't just a hitman, he was part of a brutal internal enforcement system that kept AB members and associates in line. If a member violated the code, got high without permission, refused an order, or talked too much, someone like Gresner would be sent to deal with them, usually permanently. One such instance involved the murder of a fellow white inmate who had violated AB rules by cooperating with authorities. The hit was swift, precise, and carried out in a crowded prison yard during daylight, classic AB style, meant to send a message. There are also unconfirmed reports linking Gresner to hits against rival gangs like the Mexican Mafia, La M, and the BGF, although the AB often formed temporary alliances with these groups for mutually beneficial criminal activity like drug smuggling and extortion. Gresner fully embodied the Aryan Brotherhood's three core tenets: brotherhood, honor, and respect. though in practice these often translated to violence, fear, and obedience. Once you became a member, the only way out was death. In letters, interviews, and second-hand accounts, Gresner was often described as charismatic but dangerous, a man who could shift from calm conversation to lethal violence in a heartbeat. He had an almost religious reverence for the Brotherhood, referring to it as his family and his church. What made Gresner particularly dangerous wasn't just his brutality, it was his ability to stay loyal and operational for decades without turning informant or slipping up. In a world where snitching meant death, he was seen as a true believer. Gresner's presence in San Quentin, Folsom, and Pelican Bay contributed to the wave of racially motivated prison violence that plagued California's Department of Corrections in the 1970s through the early 2000s. His name appears in multiple law enforcement reports on prison homicides, and his reputation was so well known that guards reportedly referred to his cell block as a kill zone. Corrections officers often struggled to contain the Brotherhood's influence because members like Gresner were willing to spend decades in solitary, committed to the cause, and indifferent to the consequences. Their discipline, militaristic structure, and ability to operate under lockdown made the AB almost untouchable. As the years passed, law enforcement began hitting the AB harder, especially in the early 2000s, with RICO indictments that aimed to break the gang's hold over the prison system. The federal government targeted key members, using informants and flipped AB members like Michael "Irish Mike" Thompson to gain access to the inner workings of the gang. Gresner was eventually isolated in the Special Housing Unit, SHU, and spent decades in solitary confinement, stripped of most contact with the outside world. Despite this, he remained loyal and reportedly never cooperated with law enforcement, unlike some of his former comrades. Today, he is believed to be alive but elderly, still incarcerated, and still considered a validated member of the Aryan Brotherhood by corrections officials. John "Superman" Gresner's legacy is tied to the violent rise of the Aryan Brotherhood in the California prison system. To many, he is a symbol of what happens when an individual fully embraces a life of hatred, violence, and extreme loyalty. His story is a cautionary tale of what the prison system can create when inmates are left in a cycle of dehumanization and survival-based brutality. While lesser known to the public than names like Barry Mills or Tyler Bingham, Gresner is legendary among prison staff and inmates alike. He represents the true believer archetype in gang culture, someone who lived, killed, and likely will die behind bars for a cause that offered him identity, purpose, and belonging in a violent world. John "Superman" Gresner stands as a testament to the dangers of prison radicalization, gang loyalty, and unchecked violence. His journey into the depths of one of America's most feared prison gangs offers a chilling look at how power and identity can be forged in blood, and how those who live by the blade often die by it, even if slowly, in a concrete box.